The impact didn't come with warning, just blinding force. The V-22 Recon Scout tore through the thin atmosphere of Moon T-47 like a meteor, trailing fire and debris as it spiraled down. Inside the cockpit, Lieutenant Marcus Ryden barely had time to cut power before the left thruster exploded. The blast tore through the aft hull. Flames licked up from the engine housing. The nose of the craft slammed into hard terrain, throwing up a spray of dust and metal shards as the ship skidded across jagged rocks and came to a brutal halt. The sound inside wasn't an explosion. It was a layered roar, steel shrieking, rivets popping, systems dying, and flesh meeting impact. And then silence. Marcus hung motionless, upside down in the remains of the flight chair. His helmet had cracked, blood smeared down the right side of his face. A heavy taste of iron filled his mouth. One eye was swollen shut. His suit's HUD flickered in and out, emergency indicators blinking red in unreadable waves. Life support, non-functional. External comms, inoperative. Environmental integrity, partial. The cockpit was a wreck, tilted sideways. The outer hull was buckled and scorched black. His right hand twitched. He felt for the safety release and pulled. The harness snapped open. He fell hard onto the angled floor, the impact knocking the wind from his lungs. He rolled, coughing, gasping for air. Pain stabbed through his left thigh, a deep, radiating pulse. Muscle damage, not clean, possibly fractured. He groaned, gritting his teeth and dragging himself out of the cockpit and down the narrow corridor. It smelled like scorched insulation, fried polymer, and blood. He made it to the storage compartment and pried it open with a shaking arm. Inside, ration bars, a water pack, one thermal blanket, a small medkit, and a disposable heat patch. No beacon, no flare, no external transmitter, no chance of rescue. He slumped against the wall, breathing in shallow bursts. He wasn't even supposed to be here. His assignment had been simple: reconnaissance patrol along the edge of contested space. The Galactic Union had declared the Velyari sector off-limits following months of political tension and minor border incidents. But Union Command had quietly ordered surveillance runs, using unmarked Terran scouts to avoid detection. That's where Marcus came in. A seasoned pilot with 9 years of Black Ops recon and a reputation for surviving impossible odds. This mission had been routine until someone fired first. He didn't know if the ambush came from Union satellites, an automated defense drone, or a Velyari interceptor. The ship was hit before he could identify the threat. The rest of his crew, 2 recon officers and a tech, were dead on impact. His thoughts blurred. A deep pressure built behind his eyes. He tried to steady his breathing. Then he heard movement. Not the ship creaking. Not falling debris. Footsteps. Soft. Controlled. Bare feet on fractured metal. He reached for the sidearm, still strapped to his right thigh, and drew it quickly, pointing it down the corridor. A figure stepped into the faint blue glow of the emergency light. Small. Humanoid. Unarmed. Female. Definitely not human. Her skin was a smooth, silver hue, marked with faint bioluminescent lines that pulsed like faint veins beneath the surface. Her body was slender, almost fragile-looking by human standards, but her posture carried tension, shoulders tight, chin lifted. Her eyes were bright violet, shaped like an arrowhead. She had long black hair falling across her shoulder in unkempt waves, tangled with flecks of blood and ash. Her outfit was unfamiliar to him, some form of ceremonial armor. Thin, minimal, clearly not made for protection. The fabric shimmered slightly, translucent in places. Across her chest and hips were delicate biostrands that glowed in sync with her pulse. They looked more like sensory filaments than clothing. Velyari, a scout maybe? Or a diplomatic messenger caught in the crossfire. She raised both hands slowly, palms open, fingers relaxed. A universal gesture, not a threat. Marcus kept his gun trained on her, but didn't fire. His breathing was labored now. His leg throbbed with sharp bursts. Blood trickled down from the corner of his mouth. The pistol felt heavier by the second. She watched him carefully, her gaze shifting from the weapon to his face to the wreckage around them. He wasn't sure what surprised him more, that she didn't run, or that she looked more confused than afraid. His fingers trembled. He lowered the gun and placed it slowly on the floor beside him. The Velyari female tensed, her body leaning back instinctively. He stopped moving, hands open and visible. A thin stream of blood ran down the side of his neck. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said. His voice cracked. "Are you going to hurt me?" She didn't answer, not with words. His translator implant pinged softly in his ear, uncertain. She took a cautious step forward, her eyes scanning him again. Her gaze dropped to his leg. Blood had soaked through the torn fabric around his thigh. Her expression shifted, not into concern, but calculation. She looked at the damage, assessed it, not a gesture of mercy, more like an assessment of risk. Then, without a word, she turned and left the corridor. Marcus let out a slow breath and leaned back against the wall. She didn't kill me. Didn't even try. His vision dimmed. He reached for the medkit, but the pain hit too fast. His fingers slipped. His body slumped. Darkness closed in. The next time he opened his eyes, the world was colder but clearer. He was lying on his back. His jacket was opened, leg exposed, a synthetic wrap bandaged tightly over the wound. Painkillers must have been injected. He could feel the dull warmth spreading through the muscle. A thin layer of thermal insulation covered his torso. The Velyari girl was sitting several meters away, her knees pulled to her chest, hands clasped around them. She stared at him, unmoving, silent. Between them lay a ration bar, still sealed. Beside him, an open water pack. Marcus reached for the bar. Slowly, no sudden movements. "You help me?" he asked. She didn't reply, but her eyes didn't leave his. He opened the bar and took a bite. Dry, dense, familiar. He chewed slowly, swallowed. "What's your name?" "Nothing." He sighed. "Right. Probably not a great idea to start with questions." She tilted her head slightly. He leaned his head back against the wall. "You ever crashed before?" A long pause. Then, softly, her voice filtered through his translator, quiet and uninflected. "No." "You." "Once," he said. "Vega 6. Lost altitude in a storm. Landed sideways in a ravine. My co-pilot shattered his spine. I carried him to extraction." Another pause. "Did he live?" she asked. Marcus looked up at the cracked ceiling. "Yeah, until the next mission." The silence stretched. Then she said, "Say, Rena." He turned to her. "My name," she added. "Marcus." She gave a slight nod. She stood up and moved to a nearby supply panel. Opened it, pulled out a heat patch, and walked back. She crouched low, placed it near him without a word, then sat back down. He activated it and pressed it against his ribs. The warmth seeped into him, loosening the tension in his chest. "You don't talk like the others," she said. He raised an eyebrow. "What others?" "Your soldiers. The ones who scream when they kill." He didn't answer. Instead, he stared up at the stars, cold, unmoving, framed by the jagged tear in the ceiling above them. She stayed where she was, unreadable. Neither of them slept that night. And for the first time since the crash, Marcus wasn't sure he was alone in the wreckage. The moon was silent, but not empty. Marcus stirred first. The synthetic warmth of the heat patch had faded. His thigh ached, but the sharp pain was gone, replaced by a dull throb. He opened his eyes slowly, adjusting to the low light inside the fractured scout craft. The ceiling still bore the jagged tear, revealing a dark sky scattered with stars and the faint glow of a distant gas giant. Serena hadn't moved from her spot. She sat near the opposite wall, arms loosely wrapped around her knees, eyes half closed but alert. When his breathing shifted, she looked at him. "I need to check my leg," he muttered, already bracing to sit up. She didn't stop him, but watched closely as he pulled back the thermal blanket. The field dressing was intact. The synthetic bandage had hardened slightly, reinforcing the muscle. He tested his weight slowly, pushing against the wall. A jolt of discomfort shot up his hip, but it held. She spoke. "You'll walk. Not fast. Not far." He looked at her, surprised. "That's very specific." "I observed," she said, as if it were obvious. He gave a faint nod. "Thanks. You're not like other humans," she added. Marcus blinked. "You said that before." What exactly are we like in your stories? Serena stood up and walked toward the broken bulkhead that led outside. Predators. Primitive. Driven by hunger and instinct. You take what you want. Eat what you catch. Destroy what resists. Sounds familiar, he said under his breath. Except the eating part. She turned back. We were told you consume our kind. Marcus frowned. That's not even remotely true. She stared at him a moment longer, then looked away. He could see it. She still didn't entirely believe him. They needed to get out of the wreck. Supplies wouldn't last, and without a working signal beacon, they were just waiting to die. He grabbed the medkit and water pack, clipped them to his belt, and reached for the sidearm. Serena's posture tensed instantly. He held the weapon up by the barrel. I'm not pointing it at you, but I'm not walking out there unarmed either. After a moment, she nodded. Approval, or at least tolerance. They stepped out into the moonlight together. T-47's terrain stretched in every direction like a windswept graveyard. Pale ground, pockmarked with craters and fractured rocks. Long shadows fell across the wreckage field from a nearby ridge. The air was breathable but thin, and the wind carried a biting chill. No landmarks, no visible life. They walked slowly, Marcus limping, Serena scanning the horizon. He broke the silence. You said you were with someone. She didn't answer at first. Then, quietly, my patrol ship was hit 2 hours before you crashed. I was in scout pod. Ejected. I landed west of here. Tracked your smoke trail. So you came here. Alone. Yes. To confirm if you were dead. And then you saved me instead. Another pause. I changed my mind. A low rumble cut the conversation short. Distant. Faint. But real. They both froze. Marcus reached for the pistol, raising it slowly. Serena crouched, hand brushing the dirt. She touched 2 fingers to the ground. Heavy movement, she whispered. North Ridge. The rumble came again, louder this time, like something massive scraping over rock. From behind the ridge, it appeared. A quadruped, towering. Its hide was matte black, layered like armor plating. No visible eyes, just a long snout, rows of jagged teeth, and clawed limbs that tore into the soil with each step. It moved with slow purpose, sniffing the air. Marcus backed up. What is that? Moon predator. Hunts by scent and vibration. Your blood, it'll draw it here. It can smell me from there. It already has. The beast let out a guttural snort and turned toward them. Serena didn't hesitate. She grabbed his arm and pulled hard. Run. They turned and limped back toward the wreckage. Marcus pushing through the pain, Serena leading the way. Behind them, the beast roared and charged. Metal shrieked as they slammed through the broken hatch, Marcus falling inside. Serena ducked just as the creature's claw struck the side of the craft, tearing off part of the hull. Get to the engine compartment, she shouted. He scrambled to his feet and limped through the corridor, adrenaline numbing his leg. She pulled open a side panel and dragged out 2 fuel rods. Volatile, unstable if punctured. What are you? Keep it near the breach. Marcus stumbled back toward the open tear in the hull as the beast clawed inside. The snout pierced the gap. Hot breath flooded the room. Serena slid a rod across the floor and raised the second. Now, Marcus fired. The bullet struck the rod. A burst of white fire exploded, engulfing the beast's face. It shrieked, rearing back as flames licked its armored snout. It clawed madly, backing out, crashing into rocks outside. Then it was gone. Silence returned, except for Marcus's gasps. He slumped against the wall, heart pounding. Serena dropped beside him. Sweat glistened on her skin, the glowing threads of her suit pulsing rapidly with her heartbeat. She wasn't breathing heavily, just watching him. You hesitated, she said. Yeah, I didn't know what you were doing. I thought you were going to get us both killed. She leaned back. I wasn't. He looked at her more closely now, past the alien features, past the ceremonial suit. Her fingers were trembling. Barely, but they were. You were scared too, he said. Yes. She didn't try to hide it. They sat in silence for a while. Then Marcus said, You saved my life. Again. She looked away. You gave me water. We're even. He nodded, smiling faintly. Not how I usually make friends, but I'll take it. Something shifted then. Not between them, but within them. A quiet realization. Survival wasn't just about resources or weapons. It was about trust, even the fragile kind that formed under fire. For the first time, Serena didn't sit across the room that night. She sat beside him, and neither of them questioned it. The fire from the fuel rod still smoldered in the dirt outside, casting a dim orange glow through the fractured hull. Marcus sat with his back against the wall, eyes fixed on the hatchway. Serena remained beside him, one knee drawn up, both hands resting on the other. Her fingers no longer trembled, but her eyes hadn't left the shadows beyond the breach. Neither of them spoke for a while. Eventually, Marcus broke the silence. "That thing, it won't come back." "No," she said. "Burns trigger a retreat response. It'll look for easier prey." He nodded, then glanced at her. "You've seen them before?" Serena leaned her head back against the wall. "In training. One attacked a supply team during drills on an outer moon. It killed 2 cadets before it was contained." He exhaled slowly. "That was good thinking." "The rods." She didn't respond right away. When she did, it wasn't a compliment she offered back. It was a question. "Why were you really here?" He hesitated, but not out of fear. Out of calculation. "You already know. Observation mission. Border monitoring." "You crashed close to Velyari territory," she said calmly. "That's not coincidence." Marcus didn't flinch. "We had orders to track heat signatures along the disputed line. Someone launched on us first. I barely made it through the clouds. You crossed a ceasefire line." He looked at her directly. "And so did you." She turned toward him. For a second, neither backed down. Then her posture eased. "I wasn't armed," she said quietly. "My pod had no weapons. I was only there for terrain mapping." "Funny," Marcus said. "I was told you don't patrol that far from the core planets." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Things change." "So it seems." Another silence fell, tense but not hostile. It was Serena who shifted it. "You said your crew died in the crash," she said. "Were they close to you?" Marcus's jaw tightened slightly. "Not really. One was new. The tech was efficient. My pilot, Dallin, he was solid. Quiet. He didn't talk much unless it was mission-related, but he could fly through a storm with one eye closed." "You left him behind?" He nodded. There was nothing left to save. Serena looked at the floor. "My last partner was a Velyari blood sister. We trained together for 4 years. She didn't eject. I think she believed we'd survive the hit. She stayed at the helm." "I'm sorry." "She had no fear," Serena said. "She believed in sacrifice more than survival." Marcus looked over at her. "What do you believe in?" For the first time, her expression faltered. "I don't know." She stood up and paced slowly toward the edge of the breach, looking out into the moonlight. He watched her in silence. The soft glow of the fire outside danced along the curves of her figure, her skin reflecting the light in pale tones. The suit she wore shimmered faintly, reacting to environmental shifts or maybe her own emotions. It was hard to tell where the fabric ended and her body began. After a while, she said, "Your species is louder than I expected." "Loud how?" "Your voice, your footsteps, even the way you breathe." She glanced over her shoulder. "But you're quieter in here." "Inside. That's one way to say I keep my thoughts to myself." "No," she said, shaking her head. "You don't hide what hurts." Marcus wasn't sure what to do with that. Serena turned to face him fully. "You didn't ask me what happens if we're not found." He met her gaze. "I assumed we'd starve, or freeze, or something else would kill us. There's one other possibility." "What's that?" "We're recovered, but not together." Marcus frowned. "You think your people will punish you for saving me?" She nodded once. "And mine would interrogate me for not capturing or killing you." They stood in that shared understanding for a moment. No idealism, no politics, just a grim reality. "Then maybe we don't wait for rescue," Marcus said. "There's still one engine core intact. If we can repower the comms array, even for a minute, we could boost a signal off this rock." Serena looked skeptical. "With what tools?" "Give me an hour. I'll show you what Terran field repair looks like." She said nothing, but her expression softened. He limped toward the aft section, where the core housing sat buried under debris. She followed. They worked side by side, clearing wreckage and prying panels loose. Her fingers were quicker than his, more delicate. She understood the tech fast, once he showed her what to look for. At one point, their hands brushed inside the panel. Neither pulled away. The contact was brief, but different, neither functional nor accidental. Later, when the last of the conduit clamps were removed and the emergency battery had been rerouted, they sat back against the far wall, covered in dust and dried blood. "You've got burn marks on your suit," Marcus said, gesturing to her shoulder. She looked down, running a hand over the material. "It adapts, but it's not invincible. None of us are." Serena reached for the small medical spray in the kit and leaned toward him. "Your stitches are loose. Let me." He didn't move. She was careful, using only 2 fingers to peel back the dressing and apply the coagulant. He winced once. Her eyes met his. "You tolerate pain well. I've had practice. Is that something you take pride in?" "No," he said quietly. "It's just a job." Her fingers lingered longer than necessary. Not clinically, not with intent, but without fear. "I thought I'd be afraid of you," she said softly. "We were taught to be." He looked at her closely now, not like an enemy, not even a stranger. "And are you?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. When she sat beside him again, it wasn't out of obligation or necessity. It was choice. They shared a single ration bar between them in silence. Outside, the fire had faded, but inside the wreck, something new had started to glow. The makeshift comms relay failed 3 times. Marcus lay on his back beneath the exposed control matrix, sweat streaking through the dirt on his face. Sparks jumped as he reconnected the last feed loop, twisting the thin alloy wire into place with steady fingers. He didn't say anything at first. The frustration was building, but outbursts wasted energy. Serena sat a few feet away, legs folded beneath her, watching him work. She didn't offer advice, just her presence, steady and quiet. Finally, he pressed the relay trigger again. The panel hissed, flickered, and stabilized. A faint ping emitted from the receiver, signal active but weak. Marcus sat up slowly, gritting his teeth as his thigh pulled tight again. He glanced at her. "I'm only half impressed." She tilted her head, intrigued. "Why only half?" "Because I have no idea how long it'll hold. Could be 30 seconds. Could be 2 minutes. Then we don't waste it." She handed him the encrypted relay drive. He plugged it in. The screen lit up with faint green indicators. One light blinked. Low gain transmission pending. He hit send. The panel whirred, then went silent. The light blinked once, then went dark. Marcus sat back and exhaled. "That's it," he said. "Message sent. Will it reach your people? If they're listening." "It's a long shot." She nodded slowly. "You just put your survival in the hands of someone who might want to interrogate or arrest you. I could say the same to you." Serena leaned her head back, looking up through the broken ceiling at the black sky beyond. The stars were steady, cold, distant. "You don't talk much about Earth," she said. "Is it true your oceans are dying?" Marcus shifted his weight, uncomfortable. "Not dying, just poisoned, commercialized, and mined to hell. We still pretend it's normal." "Why stay?" He looked at her, eyes narrowing. "Where would we go? We're not welcome out here. Even the Council doesn't want us near their core sectors. Humans aren't sophisticated enough to sit at the big table, right?" She didn't answer. He continued. "I've served 12 years in operations. Half the time, I was cleaning up someone else's war. The other half, I was being blamed for it. No matter what we do, someone out here sees us as a virus." Serena's tone was calm. "Because you spread. Because we survive," he shot back. "Even when the odds say we shouldn't." They fell into silence again. Not hostile. Heavy. Serena broke it. "I was born on Zelaya. Mountain colonies. My family was assigned to terrain operations, mapping, restructuring. I never saw space until I turned 20. He looked at her, surprised. "Then how did you end up in reconnaissance?" "I volunteered," she said, "to escape my binding." "Binding?" She glanced over. "Marriage. Pre-selected by caste structure. My father arranged it before I finished academy. He wanted alliance. I wanted heir." Marcus didn't say anything for a while. Then, carefully, "Did you love him?" She shook her head. "I didn't even know his voice." A breeze pushed through the open hall. It carried the faint scent of scorched dust and coolant. Serena closed her eyes as if weighing something. You smell like burned metal, she said. He blinked. That's a compliment. It's not unpleasant. It just reminds me that you're not like us. Our bodies regulate scent. Suppress it. Yours broadcast it. Marcus looked down at his hands. Dirty, bloodied, cracked knuckles. Yeah, well, we broadcast a lot of things. She moved closer without asking. He didn't shift away. They sat side by side now, shoulders nearly touching. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she asked, almost too softly, "Are you afraid of me?" He answered without thinking. I was. Not now. Why not? Because I've seen what you're like under pressure. And because you could have killed me. More than once. She tilted her head. And if I had, I think I would have understood. Her gaze lingered on him. You didn't ask me why I saved you, she said. Marcus looked at her. I figured I'd earn that answer. Her voice was quiet. I saw you hesitate. When I first approached you, you could have killed me, even in pain. But you didn't. No one hesitates like that if they're a monster. He swallowed once. I'm not a good man. Neither am I. They stayed like that. Two strangers in the dark, surrounded by metal and silence and cold wind. Eventually, he asked, You ever been this close to a human before? She shook her head. Never. You. Marcus offered a faint, tired smile. Can't say I've ever had a conversation like this with someone who thought I might eat them. That made her lips twitch. Almost a smile. Not quite. She reached for the edge of the blanket and pulled it over both of them, her body brushing his. The contact wasn't casual. It was deliberate, measured, a test. He didn't pull away. Her hand rested between them, open still. After a long moment, Marcus reached over and took it. Her fingers tightened slightly. Warm, alive. There was no kiss, no dramatic gesture, just the shared weight of a quiet decision neither of them would have made under normal conditions. They leaned back against the wall together, shoulders touching, warmth shared. And for the first time since the crash, neither of them felt alone. The wind outside had shifted. A low-frequency hum vibrated through the hall during the early hours, subtle but consistent. Something in the atmosphere had changed. Marcus opened his eyes first, instantly alert. His hand instinctively reached for the sidearm tucked beside his pack. He didn't move beyond that, just listened. Serena was still next to him, head resting lightly against his shoulder, her breathing steady, slow. The shared blanket had slipped slightly, exposing her bare upper arm. The biostrands on her suit were dim, barely pulsing, likely in sleep or energy conservation mode. He didn't wake her. Instead, he leaned forward slowly, peering toward the torn hatch, scanning the outside terrain through the faint blue pre-dawn light. No movement, but the vibration continued, a barely audible tremor beneath the dirt, like something stirring deep below. He turned back, gently touching her wrist. Serena, he whispered. Something's wrong. Her eyes opened immediately, and her posture shifted in a smooth, practiced motion. She followed his line of sight toward the breach. Her expression sharpened. You feel it? He asked. She nodded once. Pressure change. Underground? Or aerial? Either way, we're not alone anymore. They stood in silence, fully alert now. Marcus grabbed the last intact sensor spike from the survival crate and pushed it into the ground near the opening. The device blinked red. Movement detected, but indistinct. No signature match. No confirmation. Serena checked the burned edges of the outer hull where the predator had previously struck. Scorch marks haven't faded. If the smell still lingers, it'll draw scavengers. Or worse. She moved past him, grabbing the compact energy cell from the toolkit. Then we prepare. If the signal got out, someone's coming. The question is who? He didn't answer, because she was right. The next few hours were spent in quiet preparation. They reinforced the breach using hull plating from the rear stabilizer. Marcus worked in short, strained bursts. His leg hadn't fully recovered. Serena compensated for his limitations without a word, lifting heavier panels, calibrating the motion sensor, and converting a salvaged lighting coil into an improvised proximity alarm. For the first time since the crash, they worked like a unit. No conflict, no hesitation. When the sun finally rose, low and pale across the cracked moon's surface. They shared a ration bar without speaking. Then Marcus asked, "If your people come first, what happens to me?" She looked at him carefully. "There are rules. You be detained, transported, processed, executed, not unless you resist. But you be interrogated." He exhaled slowly. "So, prisoner of war." "Yes." He studied her face. "And if yours come, what happens to you?" She hesitated. "It depends on how much they think I've told you." He leaned closer. "Have you told me anything classified?" "No." He narrowed his eyes slightly. "Do they know that?" She didn't respond. Marcus looked away, jaw flexing. "Maybe we should hope no one's coming," he said quietly. She stared at him for a long time. Then, "You asked me once why I saved you. It wasn't because I trusted you. It was because I couldn't watch someone die who hadn't raised a weapon." He nodded. "I understand that." She reached out slowly, touched his jaw, her fingers tracing a small scar just beneath his cheekbone. "You flinch less now," she said. "I'm trying not to." Her hand didn't move. He leaned into it slightly. The contact, though small, was electric in its simplicity. "You were supposed to be my enemy," she whispered. "So were you," he replied. Then neither spoke. Her fingers shifted, moved behind his neck. He met her halfway. The kiss wasn't urgent. It wasn't desperate. It was slow, anchored in everything they had lived through, everything they had said and left unsaid. Their bodies pressed close, and this time there was no hesitation. His hand moved to her waist, fingertips brushing the soft, reactive fabric of her ceremonial garment. The thin layers yielded to touch, molded to the heat of their skin. She pulled back slightly, just enough to breathe. "Are you sure? I wouldn't still be here if I wasn't." Her mouth met his again, deeper this time. Her body, lithe and warm against his, responded to his touch. She guided his hand to the center of her chest, where the bio-strands pulsed steadily. Beneath his fingers, her heartbeat raced. Every motion was grounded, human, or close enough. They didn't speak for a long while. Afterward, they lay together inside the wreckage, the blanket drawn over them again, skin touching, breath slowing in unison. Neither felt regret. Neither felt doubt. Outside, the motion sensor beeped once, then again. Marcus sat up, immediately alert. Serena reached for the monitor. A single red dot hovered just outside the perimeter. Then another, and another. 3 unidentified signatures. No comms ping. No visible approach. She turned to him. "They're moving slowly. Scouting. Not a rescue." He nodded grimly. "Could be pirates. Could be worse." She moved to dress, securing the thin fasteners of her suit quickly. Marcus strapped the sidearm to his belt and checked the last 2 charge cells. She looked at him, her voice steady. "Do we run?" "Not yet," he said. "Let's see who wants to say hello." They moved toward the breach together, shoulder to shoulder, 2 survivors of a crash, a war, and something else entirely. And whatever came next, they would face it together. The first figure stepped into view just before dusk, a silhouette against the jagged ridgeline, tall, humanoid, armor faintly reflective beneath the twin suns. Not Velyari, not Terran. The gear was mismatched, scavenged, non-military. Marcus aimed his sidearm, but didn't fire. He crouched near the edge of the hull, behind one of the reinforced plates. Beside him, Serena held the improvised proximity controller, her other hand resting on the hilt of her curved plasma knife. 2 more figures flanked the first. One carried a short-barreled scattergun slung across his back. The third moved slowly, limping slightly. Their movements weren't coordinated. No unit cohesion. "Scavengers," she whispered. Marcus nodded. "Not here by accident." They watched for nearly 3 minutes as the group approached the wreck, stepping carefully, eyes scanning for traps. These weren't amateurs. They were methodical, even cautious. Then, one of them called out. A broken Terran dialect, guttural and unpolished. "This site's ours now. Drop your weapons. Come out slow." Marcus didn't respond. He studied their positions. 2 were within 15 meters. The third circled to the left, flanking. Serena shifted beside him. "We can't fight all 3. I'm not planning to." He handed her a flash beacon from his belt. "You still move faster than me." When I signal, drop it behind the far ridge. You want me to run? I want you to flank them. Pull one away. Give me a clean angle. I'm not leaving you alone. Neither of us gets out if we stay pinned. She looked at him. If I go, I might not make it back. You will. His voice was firm. No hesitation. Her eyes lingered on him a moment longer. Then she slipped out the rear breach and into the rocks, silent as vapor. Marcus counted to 10. Then he stood up. All right, he called out. I'm here. The scavenger with the scattergun raised his weapon. Step out. Hands visible. Marcus raised both hands and stepped through the opening. One of them moved toward him, closer than he should have. Arrogant. Confident. You alone? The man asked, his voice mechanical through a half-broken respirator. Marcus didn't answer. His eyes flicked toward the distant ridge. Flash. A sudden burst of white light lit the far side of the wreckage. The scavenger on the left turned, weapon raised, sprinting toward the distraction. That was all Marcus needed. He dropped low, grabbing the sidearm and firing 2 clean shots. The first scavenger dropped instantly. The second ducked behind a boulder, returning fire, wild and erratic. Marcus ducked back inside. Plasma rounds slammed into the outer hull. The interior lit up in flashes. The air smelled of burnt ozone and metal dust. He reloaded. Then he heard it, movement behind him. Not outside. Inside. He turned. The limping scavenger had made it through a breach near the rear, moving slower but smarter. Weapon already raised. Marcus didn't have time to aim. The shot never came. Serena dropped from above, silent, lethal. Her blade slashed in one motion across the attacker's wrist. He screamed. She spun behind him, pulling his arm across her shoulder, flipping him backward into the floor with brutal force. One quick strike ended it. Marcus stared for half a second, then turned back toward the breach. The final scavenger was gone. No visual, he said, stepping forward. He ran. Serena stepped out beside him. He'll return with more. Then we can't stay here. She nodded, breathing hard. Blood streaked across her forearm, none of it hers. They moved fast, collecting what little they could. 2 charge cells, 1 water pack, a clean med strip, and 1 damaged sensor beacon. The rest was either depleted or broken. Marcus strapped the pack to his side, then looked at her. You know the terrain better than me. Pick the route. She hesitated. If we leave the wreck, we lose shelter. If we stay, we die. They shared one final look at the ship behind them. Then they turned and headed east, across the barren ridge, into deeper, colder land. The night was brutal. Temperature dropped sharply. Wind tore across the open plains, pushing dust and sand against their faces. They moved in silence for hours, Marcus limping, Serena guiding. Eventually, they reached the edge of a narrow ravine. Natural shelter, just deep enough to shield them. They descended slowly. Inside, the air was still, dry, quiet. Marcus collapsed against the stone wall, pulling the heat blanket free and wrapping it around his shoulders. Serena knelt beside him. Your leg's worse. I'll live. You're overheating. Better than freezing. She reached for the med strip, gently pulling the torn fabric away from his thigh. Blood had soaked through again. Marcus winced. You're not going to lecture me? I already know you won't listen. She cleaned the wound carefully, hands steady. No words. Just focus. He watched her, the way her brow furrowed slightly when she worked, the way her lips pressed together in concentration. You know, he said quietly, if you had killed that last one a second later, I'd be gone. I didn't. He reached up, touching her hand. I know. She leaned in. Her face was close, eyes searching his, expression unreadable. Why are you still protecting me? She asked. Because I trust you. You shouldn't. Maybe. But I do. Her lips brushed his, slowly, softly. He kissed her back. Not with urgency this time, but with certainty. With choice. She climbed into the blanket with him, her body folding against his. No words were exchanged after that. They lay beneath the rock ledge, wrapped in warmth, skin touching, breath shared. The danger hadn't passed. The storm wasn't over. But what had begun in fear had grown into something neither of them had expected. A bond. A vow without words. Whatever happened next, they belonged to each other now. The transmission beacon blinked green for the first time in 4 days. Marcus was asleep when it happened, curled beneath the sheltering ledge, arm draped protectively around Serena's waist. Her head rested against his chest, body still, breathing soft. Outside, the wind had finally died. The sky was a flat slate gray, dawn creeping across the edge of the moon. She was the first to hear it. The ping was soft but distinct, a low-tone pulse from the half-broken sensor module Marcus had buried near the ridge 2 days prior. Her eyes opened. She sat up, heart racing, suddenly unsure what she wanted the signal to mean. She moved to the edge of the ravine, scanning the horizon. A small black dot appeared against the sky. Then another. Dropships. Marcus stirred behind her. What is it? She turned. Contact. He sat up fast, pain flickering across his face as his injured leg shifted. Terran. Too far to tell. But they're headed this way. He pulled the rifle closer, checked the charge. We move. She hesitated. They'll scan for life signs. If we run, they might read us as hostiles. He looked up at her. If they're mine, they'll separate us. You'll be treated like a threat. If they're Velyari, they'll question me. Assume I've compromised everything. Their eyes locked. They both knew what the other was thinking. Serena knelt beside him. We have two options. Hide, or let them find us. He nodded. And if we do let them find us, we don't know what version of us they'll want. No, she said quietly. We don't. Marcus glanced at the beacon. There's one chance. She tilted her head. Explain. We let them land. Let them scan. But when they descend, we move. To the south ridge. If we get there before they deploy boots on the ground, we reach the comm node. You said your scouts log coordinates before making contact, right? Yes. Always. For operational clarity. Then we leave our coordinates in both systems. No signal. Just the truth. Serena's eyes narrowed. You want to erase us. I want to take us off the board. Let them report the wreckage. Let them assume casualties. We walk out on our own. Where? He stared across the horizon, where the ships grew larger, slower. There's a moon near the cradle belt, he said. No surveillance. Neutral territory. Low-orbit trade hub, scattered outposts. Nobody asks questions. She studied him. And we live there. We start there. She said nothing for several seconds. Then, together, his answer was immediate. Always. The sound of the dropships deepened. They were close now. Dust trails spun through the air as landing struts deployed and thrusters kicked up waves of sand. Serena grabbed her pack, secured the last of the rations, and moved to his side. They climbed fast. No words. No goodbyes. They reached the ridge just as the first searchlight broke through the sky, sweeping across the crash site far below. The wreck was quiet now. Empty. A body lay near the hull. Marcus's flight jacket wrapped around scrap metal, arranged like a casualty. A similar figure lay across the rock not far off, shrouded in Serena's discarded armor. It was enough. As the search team descended, their scanners picked up only heat signatures and residual biosigns. No live readings. Another report filed. Another tragedy logged. Weeks later, a marketplace on an independent orbital moon buzzed with distant chatter, vendors shouting in trade dialects, engines humming, music drifting through layered corridors. The air smelled of cooked spice, hot metal, and recycled air. In a quiet corner of the trade quarter, two figures sat in a narrow booth. He wore a worn black jacket, collar turned up, a slight limp still visible when he walked. She wore a loose, civilian tunic, gray and sand-colored, with her hair tied back, ceremonial filaments woven discreetly beneath the collar. They spoke little. They didn't need to. When she leaned in, he touched her face gently, brushing away a strand of hair. No one looked twice. No one questioned why a human and a Velyari woman shared a home or a life. They were just people, alive, free, together. And that was enough.